Hello, everyone. Welcome to Answers from the Universe. And this is a message from Edgar Allan Poe. As many of you know, that I wrote a book called Macabre Short Stories and Poems from the Other Side. And within this book, all of these messages were channeled to me, and in the end, I discovered that they came from Edgar Allan Poe. From then on, I have on occasion communicated with him and had taken on the name or the title of Macabre. But for this case, something new came up. I haven't really had any deeper messages from him, and this was an alternate reality where the South won the war. And so the information came through of what he displayed and wanted to share about it, and I can go into more detail afterwards. So here's a message from Edgar Allan Poe about an alternate reality during the Civil War where the South won the war.
I stood in the dark wondering what happened to our world. Then I peered through many wonders, and there before me was a pearl. I stood above a gable, a southern belle or two, and there before me was an ancient woman too. She was old, oh very old indeed. She carried a table and a fable for all of us to see. Her name was Esmeralda, to some small symphonies, but to many of us she was Helga, or the hell beneath the deep. She opened the door before us, kept us linked to a forbidden sin, a timetable when men would lay captive other humans as slaves to the wind. I peered beyond the corridor, an open slit or door, and there stood Elia Meralda. She showed us our pain and more. Beyond the door stood Cain, her partner still in crime. He wanted the earth to suffer by racism, money and crime. The door stood still in a loop. Bright light did flow right through. With one quick glance I could see this, like the most angelic view. I will say it once and many times over, Esmeralda did have a way to entice us. She made all things look beautiful and white, yet the wicked stood strong in the most amazing virtuous white. The carriages and horses were gallant in view, and all the ladies, wicked women, looked more beautiful to view. But all was an illusion, as they stood tall in all their light. I viewed an overlay that held us captive, as they entered our very time. The South had won the war, but was this really all the truth? I searched within myself to check the time if I could view. The darkness was now the good, and all the goodness had grown pale in sight. There stood above the doorway the most amazing sight. A southern world of lies, but was it a lie of sudden truth? None of it made sense as I continued to walk on through. A painted wagon of red, with snake oil sold inside. A belly laughing gent, with tears drawn under his eyes. The laughter of a clown, or was it a joker in war? I went further, beyond the door. They always hold illusion before entering a place, to prevent the onlooker to see the truth within the space. A golden plate or charger, a metal block of wares, what stood behind some swords was a strange and winding stairs. A lemon-yellow decanter, filled with liquid spoils of illusion, a sulphur smoke of billows and yellow footprints of guests. Each and every entry would be put under the greatest of tests. Spark not the match of waiting, lest the smoke consume the fire. Each and every visitor will be tested as true or liar. I don't know what the purpose is, because all of it seems to not make sense. Their story is so jumbled that there is not exit or true entrance. I poke my head in deeper to see what else reveals. A cavalry of men in uniforms and General Custer's shield. I step back out and enter in, and within this shining place a stallion gallivants gracefully, while the ladies sip tea in a trance. Top hats are seen on every southern gentleman, and the corset pulled tight on all fair southern belles. I stood up by the opera and watched how everyone seemed to be puppeted by spells. What magic! What sinister crime! I look deeper in, and what do I find? A brawny man with a deep southern drawl, dressed in grey and eyes staring now, when he began to say, "Do you dare to challenge our alternate reality? As you can see, we have won with victory. There is nothing you can do, it is all set in stone. I write the laws, and it is for me alone. No other would dare to challenge me. So what do you think? You can do as you please?" As I stepped back a bit, and he was strong in his look, he barely moved a bit when he announced all of this with a clear, confident voice. I knew in just one moment that I had heard it right. This person here was disguised, and I was looking through Cain's eyes. So then I said, "You may look like a southern gentleman, all dressed in the finest of cloth, but I remember your lightning bolt marks across your face and skull. You are skull and bones, my friend. Nothing gracious about that." So I tore down his facade, and the reality began to snap. "You forget who I am, and you have nothing over me. You had hidden this reality, then revealed it for all to see. I told you that your time was not to rule the world. You have taken all injustices and supported them in your micro-world, then unleashed them as you choose, as you have nothing more to lose. I think you have gone a bit too far this time, so all will be removed." A mighty wind, a torrent without hesitation, took far and wide this inserted plantation. It was in the alternative, and so it is true. They have their own space, and we typically leave them, alone as we do. Yet this one has imposed much more on the higher levels. Esmeralda has invaded our space and seduced so many fellows. The sky is bleeding red, and so it was said. When the darkness merges with light, we must put up a fight. We separate it once and for all, or else the rest of us will tumble and fall. Mixing alternate and truth, there will be nothing further we could do. With a clean sweep, and without anyone left to weep, Esmeralda was taken from her high and mighty seat. As for Cain, he will try over and over again until the people stop listening to the slave system world that he began.
So I wanted to do a quick review of some of the things that he showed me, and of course there were visual aspects to what he was saying. He starts off by talking about peering through this doorway, and before him was a pearl. I think he's referencing the fact that this is it's unfolding. There's something very deep and lots of content, full of this alternate reality, pocket reality, and so it's kind of like a little gem that he found something here. And as many of you know, and I have been talking about this, these inserted realities, pocket realities, they all are influencing our present reality. And so while we're experiencing our present timeline, these things are running and influencing some other types of things that are happening, which creates conflict and a misalignment and all sorts of different things. So in a sense, it's a pearl. He found a little gem there. And there's a lot of really interesting references that I thought but this is very much like my interaction with Poe. He's pretty much referencing Gone with the Wind, Clark Gable. I stood above a gable, a Southern belle or two. And so there's a lot of little references here of Gone with the Wind. And I know that there was another point further down too, talking about the carriages, the ladies, the way that they have, their whole attire, with the top hats and so forth. We start getting into female character and referring to her as Esmeralda. Esmeralda is, this kind of dark queen. We've seen this queen show up, and actually it's probably the same one. It's like this babushka woman, kind of very dark and kind of traveling through everything. And then they also refer to her as Helga or Hel. Now in some of the old lore of like the Vikings and the Norse teachings, Hell is someone that just is in the underworld and not very bad. But in this case, we're looking at someone that is vindictive and wanting to hold a negative alternate reality. So we're literally looking at an alternate reality. She opens the door, and it's essentially a sort of slave system. It draws you in, and you look through a corridor and a slit, and then he then calls her a slightly different name, Elia Meralda. So you're seeing that there's very many variations to her name, probably her persona and expression of who she is, and that's often the way these astral beings are. And also another being that's commonly recognized through history, through the biblical history of Cain and Abel, is someone that stood there by the name of Cain. And Cain is this appearing to be, of course, he puts on the persona to fit the reality as this very wealthy, attractive Southern man with a wonderful Southern drawl, and he is leaning back on a chair, sort of to the side, propped, leaning toward on one arm, in a sense, on a very nice leather chair, and sort of, imposing himself, saying, this is my world. And of course, emphasizing, exaggerating all of the dark things that they're able to get away with in this alternate reality. And then, you see the illusion of the light. It looks bright, it's shiny, it's interesting. You're getting drawn in, even though there's darkness there, it's beautiful, it's lovely. So you get past that point, and, you see this like weird, type of painted wagon of red. So it's almost like a snake oil seller, someone that's just kind of an unassuming carnival type of guy, laughing and sort of like a clown. It's all the illusion. These are like the gatekeepers in a way. They're a type of entity that supports the construct. In a lot of the stories, even like Wizard of Oz or whatever, you see this individual that sort of is this gatekeeper, and it holds people back. They're hesitant. They don't know whether they should go in or not. But then it also creates this feeling of, I need to get past that. I mean, he's sort of in the way, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get over there because it looks really beautiful. It looks very interesting, and I feel like I want to go there. And so you're getting drawn in. Even more so, the red wagon, the red, triggers our mind. It's the break in the matrix, as we've talked about, and it is something that is inserted. You know it doesn't belong there, but yet you're drawn to it. The bright color. He's selling his wares. He's dressed. He has these tears painted on his face like a clown, and he's laughing. It's like a joker challenging you with riddles, and so you see past the illusion. Within the space, you see a golden plate there, offering of money. A metal block of wares is just like all sorts of items that you can have. A sword, there's going to be some kind of encounter. And then there is this winding stairs. Well, very much like Gone with the Wind, you have the winding staircase, where people go up, go down, and sometimes people fall down it. The next thing is this bright yellow color, a yellow decanter, or probably the liquid within the decanter. And the liquid spoils of illusion. So, and then also the underworld, sulfur, smoke, billows, yellow, footprints from the guests. So you know that many people have already been in there. And so it goes on further, and he talks about the cavalrymen, those that were probably involved. And, just to enhance the scene of familiar historical appearances, characters that stand out. So you have an identity of, and you paint the picture of what this is, So if you saw a bunch of cowboys, you would suddenly think you're in the Southwest. If you saw a bunch of swamis and dressed in Hindu clothing, you'd think you're in India somewhere. So they create this environment like a stage. And then you can see he noticed, he stepped into this reality, and he noticed that the people looked like they were puppeted by spells, almost like operating in a way that didn't seem natural to him. So he knew the first thing he says is, what magic? What sinister crime? I look deeper in, and what do I find? This is where he sees Cain as this southern man. And so he's not drawn in by the illusion. He's not seeing all these sparkly, beautiful images and getting into this reality. He's in a point of warning and apprehension in knowing that there's trickery here. And so he has this discussion. Cain clearly states that this is his place, but then he recognizes, this is Poe, he recognizes that he insists on seeing the reality of who this southern gentleman is, and then he sees a lightning bolt marks across his face and his skull. And To be honest with you, I have seen that with Cain. I thought it was dirt on his face at one point, but he does carry that image. His when he is not in a point of facade where he's hidden. If you insist on seeing the truth of what you're looking at, you may find some very interesting things like I'm talking about here. So there's this mighty wind, and things are, you can see that he looks far and wide. He sees this inserted plantation and knows that something's very wrong. He disagrees with the agenda of Cain in realizing that it is entering into our reality, and so he had to do something to stop it. Then Esmeralda shows up again, who had invaded our space, seduced many fellows. The sky is bleeding red, and so it was said, when the darkness merges with light, we must put up a fight and separate it once and for all, unless the rest of us will tumble and fall, mixing alternate and truth. There'll be nothing further we could do. So he's saying, don't let it get to that point where otherwise you get pulled into this alternate reality or this nightmarish kind of experience pulling you out of your timeline. So this is a lesson or information for you to understand. There are those that will probably do just the opposite of what I said and explore it and feel like it's a great experience. And no telling where that will lead. But I say to each his own. But truth is going to help people and understand, give you a better perspective of some of these people that are opening up their third eye, trying to understand what's going on. Don't trust everything that you see. Peel back the illusions. Don't get caught and trapped, and don't allow them to bring your life through a whole bunch of tragedies and problems and unnecessary and careless issues. We have enough challenges in our life. Why add to them? But anyhow, for those of you that are less exploring in this field or just wanting to see what was going on a grander scale, these realities have been imposing on our reality, and so you can see this is something that was just dealt with. So I say thanks to Edgar Allan Poe for sharing this information, and thank you all for listening. Have a good day.